Over the last several movies, we've learned about the three different types of loops: while loops, for loops, and for each loops. With all three loops, though, we have a couple of other options that I want to take a loop at before we leave the subject entirely. And the first of those is continue. Let's create ourselves a new workspace, and I'll show you what I mean. Let's go to File, and I'll select Save As. And instead of for each loops, I'm just going to call this one continue.php. Save it in my PHP sandbox. There we go. And now I'm going to go ahead and get everything out of there. And instead of loops, we're going to call it loops continue. Now you remember when we had a very simple loop like this before. It's just a for loop. It starts with count being equal to 1. Actually, we had it 0 before. And it goes while it's less than or equal to 10 is its test. And then it increments at the end of each loop. But what if we wanted to do other things to this loop besides just test whether or not it was equal to 10? Let's say, for example, that we wanted to tell it when it got to 5 that we weren't interested in the value of 5. We didn't want to output it, and instead just to skip over it. We saw earlier how we had an if-then statement, and we certainly could have an if-then statement that decided whether or not this executed. But we also can do something else, which is if count is equal to 5, right, just like before, but this time the action that's going to perform is going to be continue. And that's going to tell it, regardless of what's below it, if you get to 5, jump back to the top of the loop. Forget about the echo statement that's below it. Even though that's not in an else statement or part of my if statement, we're just going to immediately loop back to the top. So let's go ahead and try that and just see how that works. I'll save this. We'll switch back to our browser, and we're going to load up the continue page. And you'll see that now 5 is missing from the list. It never got to this statement right here at all. Now that's fairly self-explanatory and intuitive, I think. One way to think of it is that right now that there's an implicit continue at the bottom of every single loop. So we don't have to type it because it's a loop structure. It knows to do that. But each loop, as it goes through, knows continue back to the top. And that's the very last thing that it does. But we're telling it, do that continue a little earlier. Let's say that we're looking through a list of students in a database, and we're going to perform a lot of complex actions on them. But the very first thing we check is whether or not the student is a freshman, a sophomore, a junior, or a senior. And if it turns out that they're a freshman, we don't want to do anything else. Then we could have this check. Are they a freshman? If so, continue. Just keep going down the list. Check everyone else. Now, if they're a sophomore, junior, or senior, then maybe we want to do some more complex operations on it. And that's what continue is going to be useful for. The other side of continue is going to be break, where we break out of a loop. And we'll look at that in the next movie.